Schrodinger's cat, right? It's a physics analogy. And basically what it says, if you put a cat in a box, you seal the box, you have no idea if the cat is alive or not, right? And this is, it's an analogy for a truth in quantum physics, which is that you can't really tell what a particle is doing or where it's at, right? It can be two things at the same time. And you can't really tell unless you intervene through an observation. And then it kind of separates and becomes, one thing or the other. Now, I don't really want to get into quantum physics because, truthfully, they don't make a lot of sense. But one of the things we do see in quantum physics is that two things can kind of be in the same place at the same time, and one thing can be in two different places at the same time. That something can be and not be simultaneously, which is really kind of hard for us to imagine. At the same time, though, today is the fourth Sunday of Advent, and it's Christmas Eve. It's both things. And right now, it's the fourth Sunday of Advent, but later today, we're going to celebrate Christmas Eve. So it's sort of like that quantum physics reality coming true, that something can be two things at the same time, and one thing can be two different things. It's the fourth Sunday of Advent, and it's Christmas Eve. So happy almost Christmas. Here we are. And this is a really great sort of ending for Advent, because Advent is all about this idea of something that is and is yet to come, right? Which is about the triumph, the final victory of God. Because in the resurrection, we know what the inexorable truth is, where the path is leading unswervingly. That we are moving towards the moment of the final recreation of the universe, where God will be manifest in a way that God is not manifest with us today, and that the Lord Christ will be with us and lead us and reign over us. And we know that that truth is real, and we know that that is where history is taking us, and we know that is the final destination for our destiny. And even though that is true, that Christ's victory has assured that reality, we also live in the not yet, where we don't truly live under the reign of God in the same way. That the final day has not yet come. And we await its appearing with anticipation. And so we live in this time where the victory of God has happened. And yet it hasn't been fulfilled at the same time. It's a difficult place to be, probably about as uncomfortable as that poor cat locked in the box. To be in tension like that, of being and not being. And yet, as Christian people, we are called to live in this liminal space, this in-between time. And we are called to live in that in-between time as though the victory is here and now. That we live in a heavenly existence. That we are people fully committed to the will of God. And that we treat one another as though it were true. That's the most important part. That's sort of the nub of the whole thing, is the call to treat one another as though the final victory of God was here and present with us. Because in some sort of way, through our Christian faith, through our Christian service and mission and ministry, we make that even more manifest, that truth, the victory of love over everything else. That if we can make it true in our own lives, we, working in concert with God, move ever so much closer to that final completion. We see it here in our readings today, in our gospel story, where Mary is told that she is to bring forth a child who will be these things, and yet he hasn't even been born yet. And yet through our Christian theology, we understand that Jesus, of course, pre-existed all of that. That Jesus is eternal, co-eternal with God. That Jesus has always been with us. And yet, here we are in the gospel reading, anticipating his arrival, which we're going to celebrate later today, because it's also Christmas Eve. And so while Mary is waiting for the coming of the one who has always been here, we too are waiting for the return of the one who never truly left. That Christ present with us is real and true, and something that we can experience and live into. We experience it through the sacraments, but I think we experience it in so many other ways too. When we look into the eyes of one who loves us, who doesn't have to love us, but chooses to do so. When we see someone in need and answer them. When we take up the work of mission and ministry together with others, we see Christ alive in ourselves and in those that we are working with and in those that we are serving. We here are in Advent waiting the return. But we don't have to await the return of Jesus to live as though Jesus was here with us, because Jesus is here with us. That the love that God created the universe with lives within us, and our call is to share it with the world, so that the world might know the power of the truth of God's victory. Amen.